my channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm Messy Jessie and you're watching. Welcome to my quarterly Books That Wasted My Time video. I started this Books That Wasted My Time series last year in 2019, and it was just a way for me to talk about books that had either disappointed me or just books that I read that I ultimately despised. If you are new here and you haven't as of yet seen any of my Books That Wasted My Time videos, I have a playlist that I will leave linked down below in the description. Y'all really love these videos. They're literally the most popular videos that I make on my channel. Thankfully for me, I've had a pretty good reading year, and so I only have 5 books that wasted my time, which is a good thing. I'm glad that I haven't had to make a rant review yet this year, but the time has come. One can only stay so positive while social distancing, yeah? The time has come for me to let out some steam and spill some tea. I have a stack of 5 books here, and they are going to be presented in order from least disappointing all the way to most disappointing / the book that I hated the most. And the first book I'm gonna throw at you is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi.
Whew, where do I begin?
I actually filmed a reading vlog for both this and the sequel. I will leave that link down below in case you are curious about each and every thought that I had regarding this really beloved book. For those who aren't in the know about Children of Blood and Bone, it is a West African based fantasy that is rooted in elemental magic. In this young adult novel, we are following 3 characters, 2 of which were raised in luxury and privilege within the palace, and the other one is part of a subjugated species that used to have power, but their powers were eradicated. Those who used to have the ability to cast magic are subjugated in society. Magic has been absent for decades until one day a powerful artifact is uncovered, leading to the resurgence of magic once again. And we have a cast of characters, each of whom are fighting for the world that they want to see. They're teenagers, there is a lot of messy romances and some huge political mistakes, drama, and blunders. Now, I went into this series being incredibly apprehensive, and that was because I had started the first couple chapters in the past and I just wasn't impressed with the writing, and also book reviewers that I really trust, who I often share opinions with, really didn't vibe with this book. I highly recommend watching my reading vlog if you'd like to get my full thoughts, because I had opinions. The fantasy world is so interesting. Adeyemi really did her research in pulling the mythology together. There was so much imagination and heart that went into this book, and it's so apparent once you begin to read it. And I also really loved a lot of the social commentary. There were messages about colorism and friendship and violent versus non-violent forms of resistance and what that looks like. Some of the things that this book did really well was the kingdom politics and kind of creating this climate that is very hostile and divided. There were also such just deliciously violent and gruesome, dark, fantastical scenes that just filled a void in my heart. You definitely get your daily quota for violence when reading this book. As soon as I uttered that sentence, I realized that
I need help.
Some things that I didn't love: the inconsistent rules. What drove me absolutely wild about this book was how there would be a set established rule for the magic and how the magic works. And then whenever it seemed to be convenient for the writer, those rules would just get thrown out the window. Because it seemed like the writer had written herself into corners and she was like, oh shoot, like how do I get the protagonist out of this? I know I'm going to break
Every rule that I have set.
And then we're gonna talk about the melodrama. Oh my gosh. The author uses this writing style that I
absolutely can't stand.
It's this technique that runs rampant in young adult fantasies in particular, where an author will resort to making incredibly simplistic and short sentences as a way to convey depth and meaning. I don't know how long I lie in the dirt. 10 minutes. 10 days. A cold like I've never known settles into my bones. the chill of being alone. Literally on individual lines, 5 sentences, like these just short statements that are supposed to make the reader feel a sense of desperation or hopelessness. But those statements just don't really resonate with me. It seems like I'm being told how to feel. It's just way too heavy-handed. I want the writing to make me feel hopeless and desperate. That didn't come out right. Get it? Come out right? Like, come out right. Anyway, there's much more examples in my reading vlog that I did for this book, but overall, I still enjoyed the book. I gave it 3 stars. And the romance. Why? Am I being punished? What's going on here?
What's happening?
The lack of chemistry. It was the most forced romance I think I've ever seen in my life, and that goes for both of the romances. I didn't buy either of them for a second. I have seen more chemistry between oil and water. That's how awkward the relationships were to me. They seemed like they didn't fit together at all. Honestly, they kind of felt obligatory, as if the author was like, okay, I know that there needs to be a romance, so I'm just gonna put these 2 people together. Yo, publishers, can y'all stop letting books go through with hyper underdeveloped romances? Just because you can write a romance between 2 characters doesn't mean that you should.
So preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
And in this case, maybe we could have all just been buddies, just like pals. I still ended up giving it 3 stars. I did enjoy it. It surprised me in a lot of ways and it let me down in others. I enjoyed the sequel more and I'm incredibly excited for the conclusion. Next we have one of my most highly anticipated releases of 2020, and that is the Subtweet. I was so hurt. This disappointed the heck out of me, y'all. Where do I begin? I'll just start with the synopsis. The Subtweet follows 2 South Asian women who are musicians living in Toronto. Their paths cross when one of them makes a fantastic cover of the other's song, but when Rukmini's music takes off and her friend Neela's doesn't, it results in a lot of discomfort and jealousy, which is made that much worse when one of them types an ill-fated tweet on Twitter that goes viral, causing social media chaos and an internet firestorm. Now, I was really excited about this book because it was supposed to have a lot of commentary about social media, how we use it, how we use it to validate ourselves when we probably, we probably shouldn't. I was beside myself with excitement for this book, y'all. I couldn't frickin' wait. I was especially excited to see discussion and commentary surrounding how it's very, very easy to have miscommunications online. Some things get blown out of proportion, taken out of context, and I was really interested to see the critique of the way that many of us interact on the internet. But that's not what this book was. This book was less than 230 pages, and it took me forever to finish it because I was
not feeling it.
Do y'all ever read a book excruciatingly slow because you're not enjoying it and every page is like walking through quicksand?
You must persist.
I kept turning the pages and being like, okay, like it's gonna get good next chapter, like no worry, it's gonna be bomb. And it bombed, it wasn't the bomb, you know what I'm saying? The writing is really fast paced, which is cool and I like that, but the issue was there was little to no physical description or establishment of settings and atmosphere. So the book reads a lot like a play because it's very dialogue heavy. It's just dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. Then we have to talk about the central friendship, which quite frankly, I have never cared less about a friendship in my entire life. They meet at the start of the novel and then all of a sudden they have this incredibly toxic and codependent friendship, which would have made sense if there had been some development of that friendship, but it seemed like they met and then we were simply just told that they were friends. Because their friendship wasn't really supported by the text, it just felt unrealistic and surface level. And when you pair that with the fact that the writing is so minimalist, it makes the whole story seem simplistic and overly focused. Then there's the presence of my least favorite trope in all of fiction. The trope that gets on my last nerve. The trope that broke the camel's back. If I could, I would take this trope out in the middle of the night and I would curb stomp it. Look, if this trope were on fire and I was the only person on earth who could put it out, I would let it burn to death. Even if I was in the house, I'll die too. I don't care, it's my time. And I guess I won't have to pay back my student loans. And that trope is the miscommunication trope. Miscommunication runs rampant with this one. And why can't you just write conflict into the story? anything. Why do authors, brilliant, wildly capable authors, I've read a lot of interviews from this author and she's absolutely brilliant. So why did she insist upon creating these two really interesting characters? And when given the chance to create actual conflict surrounding how these two women might fall out, she was just like,
you know what? Let's just make a misunderstanding and then all of the drama of the book is going to be based off of that.
And so it made the book feel super high school, and the women were in their 30s, so it wasn't a good look. There is some really cool commentary on how you don't have to respond to everything that you see on social media. You are responsible for how you respond and when you respond, but you're also accountable for the things that you say and put out into the world. And it does show how easily miscommunications can happen online. My issue was I was expecting a lot more intense commentary about the relationships between women of color and about how to navigate social media in a way that is non-toxic and safe and healthy and what that looks like. But honestly, all of the commentary was very, very surface level. I didn't feel that I learned really anything from this book. The topic gets brought up, but these issues are not dug into with the depth and the care that I was looking for in a story. Overall, it felt like there were all these elements that were created and all of these promises made, and absolutely none of them were delivered upon. The friendship didn't feel real to me and wasn't interesting at all. The conflict was based off of a miscommunication trope. The writing was like a play. And the social commentary that we were promised was very rudimentary and like introductory, which would be totally fine if the book weren't being pitched as an examination of toxic online culture and barriers that women of color face when trying to form healthy bonds with one another. But because of the fact that there were some lines that were just absolute frickin' gold, sometimes she would purposefully challenge him because nothing was more entertaining than watching a grown man throw a temper tantrum as an intimidation tactic. For that line alone, this book got 2 stars. Without that line, it would have been 1 star. I'm serious. It wasted
so much of my time.
Where do I begin? Wow. Okay. The third book is called The Life We Bury, and I felt like I was being buried while reading it. I was pumped about this book for a few reasons. One, it was free. It was just being given away in my building, and I happily accepted it because I'd never heard of it, and it looked incredibly interesting. Also, it is from a local author. So this is about a college student named Joe whose life changes forever when he gets an English assignment to interview somebody. He ends up going into a nursing home to interview one of the residents when he gets paired with Carl Iverson, a Vietnam veteran who was convicted of rape and murder 30 years ago. Now he has only 3 months to live, and Joe has decided that he's interested in telling Carl's story. And as Joe begins to slowly dig deeper into the circumstances of Carl's crime, he finds that he himself might become a victim. Oh my God. My favorite thing about this book
Was the ending.
and I mean the moment that the book ended and my trauma and my torment was over.
My watch is ended.
One of my favorite tropes in all of fiction is when we have a character who has done indescribably horrible things in their past, but is trying to overcome them and become a better person. That's really fascinating to me because I do firmly believe in rehabilitation. I do believe in second chances, but how do you give a second chance to somebody who murdered dozens of people? It's always interesting trying to empathize with a character who is so difficult to empathize with. And I think that's why I really enjoy reading books about hyper morally gray / morally corrupt characters, because it gets my mind going, it makes me think, and it constantly challenges my perception of right and wrong. I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather my patience. Let's talk about the autism rep in this book. I am deeply concerned about the way that the autistic character in this book was represented. Joe's brother, not only is the autistic character in this book represented in a way that is incredibly stereotypical, his entire character is connected to his autism. He's given absolutely no characterization besides the fact that he has autism. That's literally his entire character. Then there's the scene where Joe decides to use his autistic brother as bait to get this woman that he likes to come over and hang out with him. And I'm not kidding. There's a line in here where Joe himself jokes about using his brother to get girls. Okay. And I thought we were done writing Manic Pixie Dream Girls, but I guess not. Joe's crush, Lila, literally exists to help him on his character development, which I might have been able to look past if she wasn't so hypersexualized and so obviously written that way. It made me flat out uncomfortable to read the way that this female character was written. She's beautiful, but she doesn't know it. And beneath her cold, dark exterior, beneath her request to be left alone, beneath her telling me for the 15th time, no, I can't have her number, all she really wants is my... I'm so glad I'm gay. This is supposed to be a suspense thriller, and the most chilling, haunting aspects of the story were the way that the autistic character and the love interest were written. Horrific. So good job. You scared the shit out of me. And all of that aside, the writing was fast paced. It's pretty easy to fly through, so I was enjoying it. I was sharing on Instagram, I was sharing lines showing how horribly ableist the representation for autism was. And people were like, why are you still reading this book? That's so horrible. But I had to know how the mystery panned out. Did Carl actually do it? Did he kill that girl? The mystery itself was actually pretty good. I enjoyed that aspect of the story. It kept me engaged until the end.
But
another thing that really drove me nuts was at the start of the book, Joe is judging Carl for being like an ex-convict, and it's kind of showing commentary on how we treat people that have been in jail and in prison. And the whole message of the book is not to judge a book by its cover. Just because somebody's been in jail doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It was a little too Sunday school special for me, you know? Now we are down to our last two books. These are the two books that disappointed me the most. I was highly anticipating. I was ready to shower these books with love and affection and my uncontained enthusiasm. And what did I get? Instead, they rejected me.
like everyone I've ever loved.
Dear Haiti, love, Elaine. Let's just have a moment of silence for what this book could have been. Elaine is a spirited 17-year-old Haitian American girl who gets sent to Haiti in order to spend the summer with her aunt after a school presentation goes awry. She is experiencing Haiti for the first time and also meets a very cute boy, and the sparks go flying. That is literally the synopsis. That is what the back of the book tells us this book is about.
That is not what this book is about.
Okay, even the cover, it just gives you like light, summery, contemporary vibes. We're going shopping, we're gonna find ourselves, we're gonna learn more about our culture, and then we're gonna go off to college and everything's gonna be grand. No. I felt like I was on the Jerry Springer show. That's how much drama was in this book. I was buddy reading it with a group because my TBR card said I had to buddy read a book, and I ended up buddy reading this one, and we all were like, what is going on with this girl? Elaine she's insane. She's supposed to be 17 years old and she acts like she's 12, which is not the end of the world. We don't all have to be super mature, yeah? But she was mad annoying. I didn't like her at all. But the thing is, this is not a light-hearted summer read. This book is sad, yo.
Like, it's mad sad.
And just when you think it can't get any sadder, it does. Not unlike 2020. So maybe this is a great book for now. Literally every time we overcome a hurdle in 2020, I hear that infomercial guy saying,
But wait, there's more.
first we had the plague, now we have giant hornets, and what are they called, murder hornets? This book is told in mixed media format, which is something that I really enjoy. And in this case, I enjoyed it because it made the book go by faster, and I really needed it to go by faster. It's hard to get over the fact that Elaine is super childish, and that made it difficult for me to relate to her, but that wasn't the reason that I didn't enjoy the book. Yes, I was disappointed by the fact that it wasn't a lighthearted contemporary as the book had been marketed, and that the protagonist was mad annoying. But the writing itself just wasn't grabbing me. The writing felt very, very young. Some really serious, heavy things were happening in this book, but they didn't have any weight. They didn't feel real to me because the writing wasn't supporting them. I prefer my contemporaries to be heavy. I want to be decimated at the end of a contemporary. I want to cry my eyes out. I want to cry so hard that I lose weight. I want to have a flat stomach by the end of a book. You know what I'm saying? So I can handle that. Like, yes, give me pain and suffering because it's all I know. However, what I don't like is when a book is trying to attempt depth and fails. And unfortunately, I don't know why I had to scratch literally every part of my face. I'm doing so well with not touching my face, as you can see. I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy anything that was going on. I didn't care about the characters. Although Elaine's mom is a really interesting kind of anti-hero character. And I did like the commentary on like parental abandonment and commentary on being of a culture, but not of the country that the culture is from. That's something that I relate to a lot as somebody who is biracial. The elements of Haitian culture, the use of Creole, all of that was so beautiful. And I really enjoyed seeing that in a book. I think this was the first book that I ever read that was set in Haiti, and I am so grateful to it for that. There's also just so much Black girl love for dark skin and afros, for Afro-Latinx people. So if you want a book with good, healthy Afro-Latinx rep, this is going to be a good one. You know, except for the writing and the protagonist and you know, I think I ended up giving this, initially I gave it like 4 stars, and then as time went by, it dropped to 3, and then I was like, it's like a 2.5, like a 2, like a 2, you know? But another thing that is really cool about this book is it was written by 2 sisters, which I think is really dope. I was so excited about this book. I waited for it for over a year, and I'll wait for their next one. Maybe that will be better. And now it is time for the star of the show, the book that wasted the most of my time in 2018, the book in 2020. Wow, okay, what just happened there? It wasted so much of my time that I went back in time. Mexican Gothic. Again, moment of silence for all that this book could have been.
The cover.
This is like Hall of Fame covers, yo. Mexican Gothic, we are following a young socialite named Noemi, and she and her father receive a distress letter from her cousin who has recently married a wealthy man and moved out into the hills with him. Noemi decides to go and check on her and potentially rescue her. But when she arrives to High Place, the mansion where her cousin is staying, her cousin refuses to leave. Noemi stays in order to figure out what is going on, but the more time that she spends in High Place, the more time she finds that she is less and less of herself. She starts having nightmares and hallucinations until she decides that enough is enough. She begins to snoop around the house and uncovers nothing but terror and madness. Maybe it's me. My expectations for this book were high. A horror set in Mexico during the 1950s, so it's vintage. I mean, what more could I possibly want? It's everything that I've ever desired in a book on paper. Get it? Like I'm saying, you're everything that I want on paper because books are on paper. Do you get it? One day I'll stop telling bad jokes, but today is not that day. Let's talk about the Mexican part in Mexican Gothic. If I hadn't been told that we were in Mexico, I would not have known at all. There are definitely elements of Mexican culture, and we do have some history in this book as well, but it wasn't enough to like establish the setting, and perhaps that was intentional on behalf of the author. You can argue that the people who live in High Place are the products of colonization, and that Garcia was attempting commentary on what colonization does to a culture and to a people. But it was just too subtle for me. I wanted to see more. I wanted to see the food that I know, the customs that I know. I wanted to see Mexican culture embedded in the story, and it was just peppered. It was like not even really a part of the background. Literally everybody speaks English. That wouldn't have been so disappointing if the book had delivered on the creepy element. This book for me was way too much suspense and eeriness and not enough horror. The horror really comes in at the end of the novel. The book is pretty slow and meandering. The same conversation gets had more than once by multiple characters. Everything felt very cyclical, easily repeated. I felt like I was reading the same scene over and over again, just on different days with Noemi wearing different clothes. The most exciting part about this book was Noemi describing the dresses that she was wearing.
Horror, but make it fashionable.
When we do reach the end of the book, the mystery wasn't satisfying, and at no point while reading this book did I feel anything akin to fear. I did feel feelings of disgust and boredom, and I did feel some apprehension, you know? There were definitely some times where I was like, ooh, am I about to maybe start feeling scared? Maybe. Maybe? Nope. Okay, nope, not at all.
And we're describing another dress. Okay, that's cool.
When you get to the end of the book and you figure out what the mystery is, the mystery itself is literally disgusting and unsettling, and that's where the horror comes in. So if you are squeamish, this is definitely not going to be a great book for you. It also has components of science fiction, which was really interesting. It's definitely more of a character study, and I know a lot of people really enjoyed Noemi's character, but she bored the hell out of me. I thought that she was impulsive and not in a good way. Literally the worst rescue mission I've ever seen in my life. She goes to rescue her cousin and then stays there
for weeks.
Literally. This entire book was Noemi changing outfits, going to incredibly awkward and hostile dinners with the inhabitants of the house, feeling uncomfortable. She would then sneak and try and get her cousin alone to talk to her. Her cousin would be really cryptic, and then Noemi would go to bed and have a nightmare, and it would start all over again. And that repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats until you get to the end of the book where action actually starts happening, and it all happens like within the span of a couple chapters. That's when all the action comes in, and it just felt so crammed and rushed. It was like too late at that point. I was already done. I was already done with the story. I was like, I don't care no more. Now you want to get interesting? Now you want to get good. Now you want to scare me. I mean, it didn't scare me, but like, and the romance was just an unnecessary accoutrement. It was offensively unnecessary. That was just like the cherry on top of my disappointment, was the romance. This book just wasn't it for me. I had incredibly high hopes. I wanted to love it, but the writing didn't grab me. I didn't care about any, and I mean any of the characters. The only thing in this book that I cared about was Noemi's outfit of the day. And that is going to do it for this video. Let me know if you have read any of these books, if you were planning to, if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said in this video. I love these videos because the comment section is always so interesting, and I love hearing y'all's perspectives on books that wasted my time. I ended up giving Mexican Gothic 2 stars, by the way, generously. Personally, I think it's good that we're 5 months into the year and there's only 5 books that I have read that I felt I could have just not read at all. And I would also love to know down below which book has wasted your time in 2020. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I would absolutely love it if you became a part of my dapper family. All of my social media links will be in the description box below. Stay safe, and I can't wait to see you in my next one.